With that, it's a real pleasure to introduce Diane Bondi, who I first discovered through her books, Yoga for Everyone and Yoga Where You Are. They are not only beautiful publications, but they're the most inclusive, encouraging, and body positive I found. So thank you so much for that, Diane. She is not only an author, but she's a social justice activist, an accessible yoga teacher, and leader of the Yoga for All movement. Her commitment to increasing diversity in yoga is widely recognized, especially through her work with partners like Pennington's, Gaiam, and the Yoga and Body Image Coalition. And Diane's writing has been published in Yoga and Body Image, Yoga Renegades, and Yes, Yoga Has Curves. I love that title. You can also find Diane at yogaforalltraining.com and yogaforeveryone.tv. Thank you for being here, Diane. I hand the floor to you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's always interesting when somebody's reading your bio, you kind of don't know where to look. Like, it's always this uncomfortable, like, do you mean me? Is that fine? And that kind of speaks to, a little bit of imposter syndrome that all of us have. If I could see you in the room, if we were raising our hands, I'd ask everybody, like, how many people have a little bit of imposter syndrome? And how that, like, influences, A, your personal power, B, your body image, C, how you show up for yoga, diversity, equity, like, all of that is filtered through how you feel about yourself. So what I want to address today, as in this 3-part series, is we're going to talk about yoga and social justice to start. Then we're going to move into the second part, talking about body image as it pertains to connecting to your personal power. And then with each presentation, there's going to be an opportunity to get on our mat, because I like us to have an embodied experience. So I like us to think about some of the concepts, the thoughts that are going on for us. Then I'd like to have a moment to feel these things in our body. And then we can come back and discuss, the entire experience. And I'll just give you a tiny bit of history before I jump into my PowerPoint presentation. And the reason that I like to have a PowerPoint presentation and then a little bit of movement on the mat, so it's not like death by PowerPoint. How many of us have been into a meeting or a seminar and you're like, how many slides? Plus, I tend to have the gift of gab, so my slides go on for like days and days and days. So I just thought it would be good to split it up so that you're not only getting a slide presentation, but we are going to do a practice. And know that the practice can be done from your chair. You can come to your mat. You can just, I like the laugh there, thank you. You can come to your mat. You can just observe if that's okay, if you want to sit in meditation for that time. But I just like to have a little bit of movement. Sitting for 90 minutes in front of a computer screen has been really challenging for me over the course of the pandemic. So I like to mix it up a little bit. So at the halfway mark, we'll take a little bit of a break, and then we'll like reconvene on our yoga mats or on a chair or however you want to feel this process within your body. And so to give you a little bit of context for who I am, I've been practicing yoga for 48 years. It's coming up on 48 years. I have been working in social justice and diversity my whole life since I kind of showed up on the scene with this face. This body, as we're going to talk about body image more, this body comes with a lot of political landscape, if you will. So I have been moving through the world as a Black woman, as a plus-size Black woman, for the entirety of my life. And I've learned a couple of things walking through the world. And when I came to start to study yoga philosophy a little bit more in depth, I understood the connections between what I was learning about yoga philosophy and what that meant, not only to my practice on the mat, the physical postural or the modern postural practice, but also what it could mean for others in the world as I stepped into spaces where I didn't see myself represented and often was questioned about either my credentials or my abilities on the mat. And so I thought it was kind of time, not kind of time, but time to address how yoga can create a philosophy or a framework, because that's what it is, a framework. It creates a framework on how you can live your life. It creates a framework on how you can interact with others and engage with others. It creates a framework for how you can treat your body. And it teaches us the importance of connection, because at the root of the word yoga is unity. And people often will think of it as a unity between the breath and the body. I like to think of it on a much broader scale, a unity towards all-encompassing humanity, for us to not only understand what we believe about ourselves or how we move into the world, but how the way we move in the world may impact others intentionally or not intentionally, right? Our best, we always want to put our best foot forward. We always want to do the right thing, but sometimes our intentions don't quite align with the impact we want to leave. So some of the things I've learned in my yoga practice is how to move through the world in a more conscious state, to pay attention to what's going on around me, to notice folks' reactions to things as I'm talking. My hardest thing, because I do have the gift of the gab, is listening as well, listening to hear other people's perspective. But that's like one of the most important things, that we're not in our own world all the time, and we are not constantly centering ourselves. And as we've been moving through the pandemic, I've watched how individualism and this feeling that your rights have been taken away while we are trying to protect others from a deadly disease has really changed the way we interact with others, has become highly politicized, and has been an interesting look at how humanity works within itself during a crisis. And it actually scares me a little bit, because if we don't figure out that we need each other and that we need to work together, hence yoga is unity, right? That humanity is in trouble, right? If we can't look beyond our own needs and look beyond our own individualism, humanity is in trouble. And coming from an indigenous population that has its roots on the continent of Africa, our indigenous practices are often connected to the collective, not so much that what's in it for me, as opposed to what are my obligations for others. I have a friend that I was having a conversation about this with yesterday in preparation for this. She is part of the Métis and Ojibwe community. I'm here in unceded land in the three Confederacy territories, which is the Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe, and the Patawa people. And so I had an opportunity to speak to her about her experiences as an Indigenous. In Canada, we refer to our Indigenous population and communities as First Nations. As for First Nations community, what are some of your philosophies? What are some of your core values? This is a conversation I had with her. And she said our core values is very similar to the core values I have in my Indigenous culture, which is, what are my obligations to others? And there's a YouTuber that I follow, which I think everybody should follow. He's on Instagram and TikTok, I should say. His name is Consciously. His handle is The Consciously. And one of the things he always says is education is elevation, right? And I think that's important, to elevate our viewpoints, to understand where other people are coming from. And he also says research over me search. And what he means by research over me search is researching the entire problem or challenge and seeing where we fit the pieces together as a community, versus, once again, and I've said this already, what's in it for me? How am I being affected? How are my rights being affected? Without understanding what our collective humanity needs from all of us participating in a society. So those are some of the things that I will be talking about today as we move into the practice. I like to always start one of my talks with agreements. When we are speaking, whether you're asking questions in the chats, remember, I'm speaking from my own experience. I am not African American, as much as I may look African American, but I am from the diaspora as a person of African descent, but I am Canadian with my roots in the Caribbean. And I will be speaking of my experience as a Black person moving through the world. Where I live is right on the border with Detroit. So if I walk down to the end of my street and look out over the Detroit River, I can see people walking in the street in Detroit. So a lot of things that influence Americans also influence me here in Canada, as we are ostensibly a suburb of Detroit. We are the closest suburb of Detroit in Canada and a whole nother country. And it's interesting to see how Indigenous populations and historically excluded populations are treated on both sides of the border. And I've really had a wonderful opportunity to go to Australia and go to Europe. And when I'm in these places, I'm taking in the experience of a Black person moving through the world and what that looks like on all different continents, and as well as it looks like being a part of places that have been colonialized. So I am speaking from my experience, in which I feel I have a PhD, and everybody has a PhD in their own lived experience. So that's something that you can tuck into your back pocket of personal power. Everyone has a PhD in their lived experience. So I really think that's important to recognize when we are feeling our own personal power. So I'm going to be speaking from my own experiences and my observations as a political scientist, and from just being in the yoga world for the last almost 50 years. We are listening in this presentation to understand with an open heart and an open mind. Know that you may be upset or perhaps triggered by some of the things that I'm saying in this presentation. What I would offer you is to sit with those feelings and to ask yourself why you feel the way you do. Ask yourself if this is an emotional feeling or if this is a factual feeling. I mean, all your feelings are valid regardless of what they are, but what's coming up for you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say in this moment. And can I sit with it? Or do I need to talk to people around me, or do I need to pose a question? Be willing to experience discomfort. So that's essentially linked to the previous agreement. Confidentiality, so we aren't necessarily sharing stories that don't belong to us to share. And if people are sharing in the comment section, we want to keep it to the space because we're speaking about it in the space. And this is a brave space and not necessarily a safe space, meaning that things come up here that may be new to folks. Folks may be upset about certain things. Folks may have realizations about certain things. So there's no way to create a safe space where nobody feels upset or uncomfortable or perhaps triggered. But we can create a brave space where people can share what's on their mind. People can have the courage to share their experiences if they choose to do so, and know that we are going to listen to understand, and that we will be confidential with your thoughts and your feelings. And we're going to be here to support each other in community, that we have a mutual responsibility to do that. So I have a responsibility on my end to present and to share with you what I have learned. I'm not here to change your mind or convince you of anything. I'm here to share with you my experience, and you can make your own, assumptions or educate yourself based on that. Make sure you locate yourself if you're feeling at any time uncomfortable. Root down through your feet, take a couple of deep breaths, relax your shoulders, and ask yourself what you are learning in here. Attend to impact and acknowledge the intent, right? So we always want to move out in the world with the intent to share, with the intent to be in community, and know that that has an impact. And here's a big one for me: expect and accept non-closure. I know that we all like to tie everything up in a neat little bow and have closure on things, but no, that might not happen in this situation, and that this is a lifelong process of learning. And the fact that you've signed up for a webinar tells me that you're in connection with lifelong learning, that you want to learn something else, that you want to see something from a different perspective. And I think that's important that you understand that. So you can expect and accept that there will not necessarily be a clean-cut answer for you. That you're not necessarily going to get exactly what you're looking for, and that it's up to you to use your own resources, to reach out to your own communities, and to unpack some of the things I'm going to share with you today, so that you can have a better understanding of your own humanity, a better understanding of humanity as a whole, and how we move forward to help people feel empowered, to help people make peace with their bodies, to help us start to fight the global pandemic of racism, and to be in better community with each other. So we really want to recognize our humanity, and that's what I take from the yoga practice. So I'd love to look at what's happening in yoga and wellness spaces and what the social implications of mainstream yoga and wellness culture are. So I don't usually use the word wellness very often, because I feel like wellness has turned into this, and it has, multi-billion-dollar industry trying to sell me things that I don't necessarily need in order to maintain wellness. So I often hear people talking about wellness like they went for a massage and they went on vacation, or, they had their nails done, or they had a facial, and all of those things absolutely can be part of your wellness. And I think it's important and part of your self-care routine. But what other things can we also take from the world around us or enjoy from the world around us that don't cost a lot of money, that contribute to our wellness and our well-being, and may in turn have a positive impact on others or a positive impact on the environment. So when I think of wellness and social justice on a scale that is side by side, so that when I take care of myself, which may be tapping out of social media, if there's a lot of drama going on social media, or I'm being traumatized by something on social media, or I'm being traumatized by something on the news, I can step out of that space for my own self-care and my own well-being, right? And save my energy for causes and things where I can have a better effect. But the doomsday scrolling on the internet and the constant feeding of this 24-hour news cycle that very rarely has good information to share can start to have an effect on your psyche. And there has been plenty of studies to indicate that social media has a lot of effects on our young folks. So making sure that we understand what we are consuming, that we are being media literate on what we're consuming. We're looking for where these resources are coming from, or what is being quoted and why, because there's a lot of misinformation that goes out into the world that people will take us back. So one of my self-care and social justice things that I do for myself is tapping out of the news sometimes and tapping out of social media if it's not working for me. So that's like a self-care management that I have, because then it gives me more energy to devote to things that are actually going to impact my life, or that actually have an impact on the larger community, as opposed to me crawling into my bed, pulling the covers up over my head, and completely giving up on the on humanity, because the constant being fed of the things that don't feel good and the things that are going on in the world that I feel helpless about makes me want to give up on the entire thing. Like I said to my husband the other day, when I know I need to take a social media break, I'll say to my husband, I'm from the island nation of Barbados. I'll say to my husband, you know what? I think it's time to pack everything up, move down to Barbados. Like this is a thing I can just get up and move, which is not a thing. Get myself a little, beach house, even, maybe a tent on the beach, even whatever I need. Buy a bunch of stand-up paddle boards and rent them out. And then I can just give up on the world until climate change removes my homeland. Like, you know what I mean? I get into these moments where I'm doing a lot of this doomsday scrolling that my energy is so depleted that I don't feel well enough to participate in society. And so that's one self-care thing that you can do that is not necessarily getting your nails done, which, as you can see, I do, getting your hair done, which I do as well, all those things, but things that are strategic. And I want to share a book with you that I'll be talking a lot about. This is by a friend of mine named, I love her name, Anana Paris Harris. And or Harris Paris, pardon me, I always flip it around, Harris Paris, where she talks about strategic self-care. And this is the Self-Care Matters, a revolutionary approach, so that self-care is strategic. And when I'm talking about strategic, that's the way I'm talking about it. I am tapping out of certain spaces that don't feed me emotionally or mentally and deplete my energy stores. Because when my energy stores are depleted, I'm less likely to show up in social justice activism. And that doesn't help the world, right? If I feel so overwhelmed and so tired that all I want to do is rest and not participate in the world, then I'm helping myself, which is great, but it comes back to me search over research, where we want to be impactful in our communities. So once I'm rested and I focus on, like someone said, the good news outlets, I like to tap into that. I like to spend time with my friends that fill up my cup. I love to spend time with my boys. I'm the mother of 2 teenage boys. And so I love to refill my cup that way, because then my energy is elevated and I am more likely to want to step into spaces to help others. But when I'm depleted and scared and overwhelmed, then I want to cocoon into myself. And these things lead to other health issues that, as a Black person, I am genetically predisposed to, given the environment that we live in, given the way the world rolls out for us right now. And so keeping your energy high and watching what you consume and being aware of what you're consuming and taking a break, whether it's turning off your phone for a couple hours or getting out into nature, because studies have shown that if you get up to 2 hours a week out in nature, it has an exponential effect on your emotional well-being. And I live here in Canada. There's 2 feet of snow outside. When I'm done my presentation with you today, I've made a commitment to myself that I'm going to go walk around the block a couple times because the sun is shining, and I know that's going to recharge my batteries, which were completely depleted yesterday. And it makes it really important for me. So what I have noticed about how wellness culture is that it's very one-sided, that there are lots of folks who are almost intentionally excluded from wellness spaces. When I first became interested in teaching yoga outside of my own personal practice, and to give you a little bit of context, my mother taught me yoga when I was 3 years old. So I've been on and off my mat for the last 48 years. I'll be 52 in April, and forgetting when my birthday is. And she taught it to me as a way to regulate myself, right? As a way to take a little bit of time. And quite frankly, she had 3 children under the age of 4 and was a stay-at-home mom at the time while my dad went to work, and she was a new immigrant to Canada. So she didn't have resources around us to help with children. She didn't drive a car. Where we were living was pretty rural at the time. So she was kind of stuck in the house with 3 kids. So she had to find a way to manage her own stress and to manage her own self-care. And she found yoga because that was something she could do at home that didn't cost any money. And at the time, this is the early 70s. This is well before we had expensive yoga mats and expensive yoga clothes and all that kind of thing. You did yoga on the carpet in your basement. Back in the day, we used to call it a rec room. And that's what we do. We would just go and do some movement together. And then my mother would give me a life saver lollipop. I don't know if they make them anymore. It was like this huge butterscotch lifesaver on a stick. And she would sit me down on this ugly tapestry green chair. And I had to use this as my meditation. I learned it later that this is what I was learning. I had to count how many times I could lick this lollipop because my mom wanted me to be quiet. I have the gift of the gab. I've always been a precocious kid, and she just needed me to be quiet while my brother and sister were napping. And so and this is how she did her own self-care back when self-care as a revolutionary act wasn't so mainstream or widespread. But when I come to what yoga, which has been a personal journey for me, when I come to the yoga space as a person of color, this is the type of imagery I see. So the presentation that you're looking at that I've created is created in a software called Canva. And when I type yoga into the Canva search bar for photos, there's not a lot of photos of Black people doing yoga, of people of color doing yoga, people of size doing yoga, or people with disabilities doing yoga. And all those things happen. I work in spaces and I participate in spaces where there are Black folks and queer folks and people of color and people with disabilities all cohabitating in a yoga space all at the same time. But we don't see this in mainstream yoga culture. And the problem with not seeing representation in mainstream yoga culture is you cannot be what you do not see, right? I just so happen to have a mother who was interested in doing yoga because that's all she had access to at the time, a book and a basement. But we didn't have this whole, yoga, industrial yoga complex that we have now, where we are highly marketed to, and yoga has become a commodity that can be bought and sold. And really, this imagery keeps certain folks away from their, finding ways to enhance their own wellness, right? I always see these really performative pictures of yoga poses. And when I teach yoga in public spaces, I will often get folks saying to me, oh, my body doesn't bend that way, or I don't look like that, or I can't participate in that, because we've created a very specific body image and a very specific culture of who gets to practice yoga, which is very exclusive, which centers around whiteness, which centers around able-bodiedness, it centers around heteronormative stereotypes, and it excludes a whole group of people from coming into conventional spaces because they don't see representation. And so I took it upon myself to Google what a yoga teacher looks like. I don't see myself represented here anywhere. And this is a recent search. I think I did this sometime last week. Every time I update this, I try to do a new Google search to see what we're looking at when we Google yoga teacher. And if you can see, the predominant imagery is it's very able-bodied, it's very white-centric. This is the first time that I've seen, like the third slide in, a woman of color represented. And from what I can see in this entire presentation, there's maybe just the one or two people of color represented as a yoga teacher here. And this is just the first, few lines of Google. I will say that there is a picture on the bottom slide of the world's oldest yoga teacher. I think she has since passed. She was in her 90s practicing. Patricia, you make a great point, and very few men. We see Rodney Yee in the second slide, and maybe a couple of men participating in the bottom. It's my bottom left. It might be your bottom right. But we see very few men. We don't see anybody with disabilities. We certainly don't see anybody who is South Asian, which is the culture in which we are borrowing or appropriating from. We don't see a lot of representation here, right? So if I were deciding that I wanted to be a yoga teacher and I was going to search yoga teachers, maybe I think I can't be one because I don't look like what the predominant stereotype of what a yoga teacher looks like. And then I took it upon myself to Google just the term yoga. And it gets a tiny bit better here in that I see more people of color represented, but I still don't see a lot of men represented here. I still don't see anybody of larger size bodied represented here, older bodies, or bodies with disabilities. So this goes a long way to defining your body image when there's something you want to participate in and you look it up online and you don't see anybody that looks like you either practicing or teaching. It gives you a false sense that your body isn't going to be accepted in a yoga space, and in some cases that does happen, or that people who do yoga don't look like you. And it goes a long way to defining your own body image in wellness when you don't see people like yourself either participating in wellness or leading practices of wellness. So it goes back to what I say of you cannot be what you cannot see. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. All right, I'm going to pause here. I don't know what the next slide is. Let me just finish here, and then I'll open up for questions if anybody has questions or comments. I'm also interested in the commentary because it always leads to really good conversations. So one thing that we have done in the West is that we've westernized yoga to really focus on the physical postural practice. And the physical postural practice has not been around that long. It's been around for about 200 years. So when we hear about the practice of yoga being 5,000 years old, we're talking about the ancient scripts like the Vedas, which is, the verses of the philosophy of yoga. So I'm really simplifying it here because this is only 90 minutes and I don't have time to dive in to the full history of yoga, but this is something that you can look up on your own. A great book that will give you a lot of insight into the history of yoga, and I've got mine dog-eared and I've got a lot of sticky notes in here, is a book that's written by TKV Desikachar, and he is the son of I would say the godfather of modern yoga as we see it now, which is his father, Sri Krishnamacharya. He's one of the first people to bring yoga to the West in terms of training teachers that ended up coming to the West. And he's actually the trainer of this particular woman whose name is Eugenie Peterson, but now goes by the name of, or was renamed, Indira Devi, if you're not familiar with her. She was part of the group of teachers that came out with Pattabhi Jois, who is the creator of Ashtanga and all his drama, which we won't get into here. Mr. Iyengar, who also recently passed away in the last 5 years, who's the creator of restorative yoga and using yoga props. And some of the yoga, the actual yoga groups, right? The actual folks whose lineage and culture this actually is. And what ends up happening in the West is we take something that is from another culture, we dilute it down and take out the parts of it that serve us, and we forget everything else. So what you're seeing here with Indira Devi is a classic look at what appropriation looks like. She is dressed in a sari. She's doing a mudra, and she's now been, christened the queen of modern yoga. So this is the first time that we actually see someone take yoga, because she ends up coming to the United States, opening a yoga studio in all places, California, and starts commodifying yoga. She's like one of the first people who starts taking money for yoga as a commodity. And she sells yoga as something that will keep you beautiful and young. So this is the first connection we start to see to a body image or a image of what yoga looks like compared to where it comes from in its roots. With Krishnamacharya, who's a godfather. I'm going to see if I can find a picture of Krishnamacharya in here. I love the pictures in the front. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but you can see it's come a long way from that. That is actually Indira Devi's teacher. Okay, so it becomes very much whitewashed in the in the yoga space, or in North America anyway. The book is The Heart of Yoga: Developing a Personal Practice. It's a very well-known text. It's written by D.K.V. Desikachar, Desikachar. So if anybody can write that in the chat, whoever is monitoring the chat, The Heart of Yoga. If you just type The Heart of Yoga into Google, you won't need to know his name, because this is a very big book that is been, for me, a big part of my learning, unlearning, and relearning. So part of social justice is acknowledging what we take from others. And part of living in community is acknowledging what doesn't belong to us and giving back credit, right, to the people that it belongs to, or at least acknowledging, right? When we do land acknowledgements of where we are on this unceded, stolen land, we want to give reverence, and we want to give light to, and we want to give recognition to the people who have come before us, and the people who teach us, and the people who fortify this land, or are protectors of this land, even though most of us are only interested in commodifying these things, right? But she's the first person that we see start to sell yoga to the West, if you will. And this is the imagery that starts to set us up for what yoga is supposed to look like. So if we want to dive in, I'm going to pause on this. I don't think this is relevant right now, but if you ever get a minute and you want to have an actual laugh, you can go to YouTube and look at the top 10 yoga teachers in the world and notice what they all have in common. Most of them look like this individual on the front of the mat here. So if I'm a person who's looking into my own wellness and my own happiness, and I step onto Google, or I come into social media spaces, I'm going to see who the 10 best yoga teachers are simply based on their popularity on YouTube, not based on the training they have taken. Nobody of South Asian descent is included in any of these YouTube, 10 of the best yoga instructors. Most of these folks are in California. I believe all of these folks are white, or the vast majority of them are white. But when I look at things like this, it only gives us one perspective of what yoga looks like. It only gives us one way to look at anything. And once again, it commodifies a practice or a philosophy and makes it feel unattainable to the masses. So I'm going to pause here because I noticed there's a few questions. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a moment because I'm actually going to switch slide presentations. But I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I saw some questions come up. So let's dive into the questions. Oh, I'm reading my I'm reading the closed captioning in here. So what is the name of the first book you mentioned? Oh, yes, Self-Care Matters. So we're talking about personal power in this, and we're talking about body image in this 3-part series. We're going to dive into this book more in the second and third part of this. But this book, if you can get your hands on it, Anana, A-N-A-N-A, Harris Paris, has written a great book about strategic self-care. And we'll dive more into it, about having like a self-care dream team. Who do you go to when you're not feeling the best, or you need to interact with somebody who's going to help you fill your bucket, what that looks like, what your go-tos are. So this is a really great book, and I will reference this a couple of times, which is good. And then the second book that gives you an insight into the history of yoga, a little bit around the sutras, a little bit around the Upanishads and the Vedas, which is the ancient yoga texts that teaches the philosophy of yoga. In this book, The Heart of Yoga by Desikachar. But if you just type in The Heart of Yoga, you'll see this book come out. So yeah, you can check that out. And you can buy these books pretty much anywhere fine books are sold. I would say check out your independent yoga or your book retailer, or check out or see if you can get it into your local libraries. I know you are all big librarians. I'm a fan of all librarians. Librarians change the world and change my life. So any questions? I don't know I can't remember who's monitoring the chat. Is it you, Nancy?
Yeah, you've got a question about, I can't find it now, but it was basically, do you have any advice about finding
Accessible
yoga class? Accessible yoga, yes.
Yes, wonderful. Yes, I do. There's a couple of organizations that I think are doing a really great job of finding accessible yoga. And now more than ever, yoga teachers are learning that they need to become more accessible. I have a friend named Jivana Heyman who's written a book called Accessible Yoga. And he's got an organization where he trains a lot of teachers around how to adapt poses for different kinds of bodies. I took a training with a man named Matthew Sanford, who's an Iyengar trained teacher. And as I mentioned, Iyengar is one of the students of Krishnamacharya, like one of the original purveyors of modern postural yoga. And he's trained in that lineage, which is the Iyengar lineage, and he happens to have paraplegia. And he's teaching to folks who have brain injuries, folks who have quadriplegia, paraplegia, who maybe have amputees, or maybe things that are going on, traumatic brain injury, and he's teaching to those. So his organization is called Mind Body Solutions. But check out the Accessible Yoga organization. You can just Google them. They'll come up right away. You can also check out Yoga for All, which is my organization. I train teachers to be accessible. And so we have a directory of accessible teachers all over the world, because we've trained about 2,000 folks into how to adapt a yoga practice so people don't feel left out. So yeah, so check out Yoga for All. Check out Accessible Yoga. Check out Mind Body Solutions. Susanna Barataki is also great. She's got a book called Embrace. I have it on my shelf here too as well. Embrace the Roots of Yoga. I have so many books and I have it right on my desk. But yeah, another person. Embrace Yoga's Roots. So you can also check her out as well around accessibility. One thing that we have learned is when we commodify a practice like yoga, it becomes really performative in that we focus it around the asana or the postures, and not so much the philosophy of being kind to each other. So I'm going to quickly go through a few philosophy points before I check back with everybody. Are there any other questions and or comments? Because it always makes for an interesting conversation.
There's a lot of great comments, so you've probably seen there's quite a lot. But one of the comments that I would make is there's these comments when you were talking about self-care, about the healing properties of nature, and that leads to outdoor yoga, like when you have your feet on the ground is extra wonderful.
Delicious. It's delicious. Because I live in Canada and we have to come in the wintertime because it's minus whatever outside.
Yeah.
Outdoor yoga is beautiful, and I live right next to the Detroit River, so we often do outside yoga in the riverfront. And that's another way to make things accessible, because some people feel really intimidated, myself included, going into yoga studio spaces. But having a practice at the park or on the beach that can be a donation practice, that we can use trees and we can be in the just in the dirt and the soil, is really rewarding, right? It's really being outside. Like, I just miss the spring and the summer. But what I've done to help my own mental health is I've learned to embrace winter by taking up winter sports. So I just this year learned how to snowshoe. If anybody has snowshoed, your butt will hurt for days. I just thought, okay, I'm putting on shoes and walking in the snow. How hard can it be? Very hard. It can be very hard. So yeah, so I've learned to do that. I run. So I run throughout the winter time. I just bundle up, let my nose hair get frozen, let my eyebrows get frozen, and just plow through it. But there's something really magical. And like I said, there was a study that was recently published that if you can get up to 2 hours during a week outside. And I'm a big proponent in terms of wellness and self-care, that it's not all or nothing. It's all or something. So even if you get out there for 10 minutes, even if you take a walk around your block, I live in a subdivision, so I go to the community mailbox, and sometimes that's all that I can manage. But getting outside and just letting the sun be on my face for a few minutes, I find is really very rewarding in terms of maintaining my mental health, especially during a pandemic. Awesome. Any other questions?
I don't see any
Okay.
comments, and we will share all the comments with you later so you can enjoy them too.
Okay, thank you so much for thinking of me. All right, I'm going to pop to a slightly different slide or presentation. Don't worry, I will give all of these to the powers that be, so everybody will have access to this. So I'm going to go back to sharing my slides. I love technology. It works. When it works, it's great. When it doesn't work, I'm super confused. All right, so these are what we call the yamas and niyamas. So if you're familiar with yoga, which people who are coming to this presentation, I assume that you're a little bit, again, assuming that you're familiar with yoga. Yoga comes from an 8-limb practice. So there are 8 limbs on the tree of yoga. And asana, modern postural yoga, which gets the most attention here in the West, is the 3rd limb out of 8. So that just goes to show you, in terms of priority, how important postural yoga is. It's important, but it's not the most important thing. The first 2 limbs on the branch of the yoga tree are the yamas, observances, and practices, niyamas. And we're going to talk about how they align with social justice and activism so that we can bring those things together. So the first thing that we say, and I think this is great because I think it also aligns with the Hippocratic Oath for those of us in the medical industry, is ahimsa, or nonviolence. Do no harm. So if we are practicing loving kindness and non-harming, then we are practicing yoga. But if we are not practicing those things, or we're being really intent on our own physical sensations or our own health only, I think it's important, of course, for your own liberation and for your own health, but that it's not the only thing that we care about, that we care about the health of others. And practicing to be aware of our impact versus our intentions, which I made mention of in the beginning during our community agreements. And acknowledging that we're not always going to get it right? Like learning how to give an appropriate and proper apology can go a long way to reducing harm or making repair. And it's only been in the past 5 years that I've learned how to make an apology. I thought an apology had an if statement in it, or we could always say to folks, well, you're just being too sensitive. When you think somebody is being too sensitive about something, I would turn the script or flip the script and say, maybe I'm not being sensitive enough. This person had a pretty big reaction to what I said. My intention was not the impact that occurred, but clearly something I have said has created harm for someone. And maybe I need to be a little bit more sensitive to things I don't fully understand when I'm participating in this way, right? So apologize. Prior to us coming online, we made mention that language is constantly changing. And I should acknowledge that at some point I'm going to use the incorrect language because it's changed in the last little bit. Language is changing so rapidly and quickly. I'm trying to find a new word for the word trigger because apparently that's not language that we're using, or that's language that we're trying to change when people get upset or when their emotions get, and I'm stuck on the word. So things are changing all the time. So we need to acknowledge that things are changing, and we need to strive to be, activated. Thank you. See, there's the word, activated. So now I want to move that language. I'm really working on that. And that's why we have these kind of presentations and these opportunities to share what we have learned, because I learned activated. That's a perfect word. When people get activated by something you said or something you did, it's up to us to kind of unpack what our impact is. So we're striving to be kind and thoughtful with our words and our actions to everyone, our children, our partners, our friends, our acquaintances, strangers, and those we disagree with or we find difficult to understand. I know that is the hardest part of the practice for me, because there's so many of those folks that wind up on my Instagram and other places where I don't really have the energy. And I do it when I have the energy. And I don't try to change people's minds. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I just try to share my experience of the world, just so people who might not have this kind of knowledge can see where we're coming from, or can see why this would be activating. I really like that word. Whoever shared that with me, thank you. Activism is an act of love because we're trying to create justice and an equitable world for the people we love and for all of humanity. And I think a lot of that sentiment, it's Black History Month, was echoed by our prominent activists. Certainly the most quoted activist, Martin Luther King. We hear about, we cherry pick what we want to learn from Dr. King in a white dominated world. Things have been sanitized. And I don't know that people fully understand what the impact or the intent of Dr. King was. And if you haven't read his book, Letters from a Birmingham Jail, it's going to give you a really clear understanding of who he was, and that he was one of the most hated men of his time. I follow his daughter, Bernice King, on Instagram, and she's very active on Instagram, and she doesn't come to play. She is very clear about what her dad's legacy was about and how it's been misquoted and misused. So I really think we need, if we're going to practice non-harming and non-violence, we have to tell the truth. And I think that may be the next slide. Oh, no. The next slide, we're going to come up on truth, which is satya. But Nancy, I'm reading, I'm sorry, Ishna Pranaha, it's to surrender, devotion. These are the practices of surrendering our ego, letting go of our ingrained belief systems in order to see the divinity and the connection to each other. So we learn things about how to interact with people based on what? What our parents teach us, based on what society says is appropriate, based on our own personal experiences out in the world. And so sometimes we learn things that aren't true, right? We learn things because of a certain point of view that wants to be taught. So we need to unpack, and this is like how I think of racism and injustice. I think of it as a bad habit that we have learned. And let's be clear, we all participate in white supremacy. And white supremacy overtly presents itself as, the alt-right, white nationalist groups, and most famously the Ku Klux Klan, That's what it overtly looks like. And those folks are easy to spot. So we know to stay away from them, or maybe not interact with them, or not being in the places where they exist. What's less evident around equality for all of us is those of us who choose not to participate at all. And I think Dr. King talks about that. I think Malcolm X talks about that there's this moderate center who doesn't participate one way or the other, and that's not how we get to where we need to be, right? We need to see each other. We need to hear from each other. We need to be in communication with each other. We can't be avoiding each other if we want to actually get to know each other and lift each other up, right? What does your highest self say about injustice, sexism, ageism, homophobia, transphobia? Are we able to surrender the idea as whiteness, and this is what I'm talking about with white dominance and white supremacy, as white being the norm, and everything else is other? So if we're participating in a world of diversity and inclusion, then white folks have to also include themselves in the conversation of diversity. Because whiteness is a color too, right? It's not white and then diversity. It's all of us together. And if we don't work on the stuff that separates us from each other, then we're never going to get past the global pandemic of injustice and inequity that is often underpinned by bigotry and prejudice. All right, here it is, Satya. I knew it was coming. What is the truth of our existence? Are we being truthful with ourselves around what we believe and how we interact and how we show up, right? And each person experiences their own truth in a different way. So the way I walk through the world is going to be a different truth than somebody who doesn't look like me walking through the world. For example, my husband is white, and when he walks through the world, his truth is very different from mine, right? Truth has multiple facets, right? Truth is about challenging our belief systems, about opening our minds, about listening to others, but to tell the truth of others and let people tell their truth and us actually hear it, even though we may be activated by it, even though it makes us upset, uncomfortable, because this is our ability to stretch and grow, right? It's not hurting you to hear something about what your ancestors did in a way that can't help you figure out how you want to change it moving forward. True listening requires a desire to understand and to hold space for someone else without a self-serving motive, which comes back to our ideas of individualism, right? Do we want to give ourselves an opportunity to sit or stand in our truth, but also acknowledge that multiple truths, depending on your identity, exists? And that when we hear the truth of others and we share the truth of ourselves, it builds a sense of understanding, embodiment, and knowing that can be very rewarding to developing your own personal power. I honestly feel most powerful when I'm in community with folks who are expressing themselves and I can make space for them, or I can platform them, or we can work together on a project. That I can diversify my perspective of the world beyond what I only know. That is so powerful. And to know that power isn't like a pie that's divided into eighths. Now that I've given you a piece of the pie and now I have less. When I learn about other people's lived experiences and I enjoy other people's cultures and food and I'm in community with other people, I feel so powerful. I feel less isolated. Whether these things happen online or these things happen in person, as they eventually will if they're not already, there is power in knowing the truth of your history. There's power in knowing the truth on how we can move forward. There's power in being in community with others. There's power in knowing your own story. There's power in showing up for the collective. And we're going to continue to unpack this over the next 3 sessions or the next 2 sessions after this one. But I want to totally give you a movement practice. So I'm going to pause here for questions and then we'll transition into movement. All right, Nancy, do you have any questions or conversation for me? Again, I don't want to do death by PowerPoint because there are lots of slides going on here.
Well, you have so many comments, but Nicole is saying she wants to, she would love to lift you up for the way that you're using Sanskrit words, a practice that's often abandoned in the West and flattened by white supremacy. So kudos for that.
Thank you. I try really hard. My pronunciation always isn't the greatest, but I'm trying really hard. Thank you for that, Nicole. Thank you.
And a name that's initials, or I can't quite say the name, KMLSNA, homophobia, transphobia are no longer accepted terminology. We also had,
it's changed.
Yeah.
Okay. See, like since I created this, it was still an okay. Do you know what the new terminology is?
I do not. So I'm going to see if our commenter recomments for us. Educate us, please.
Yeah, I hadn't heard this. This is
and while we're waiting for that,
yeah.
there are a couple of references to Shinrin-yoku, the forest bathing, and Eco-nidra as coming out of the whole nature healing aspect.
Nature is so healing. I love it so much. I wish the climate here would cooperate a little bit more, but I don't want that because that means climate change, right? So I'm going to have to think about my retirement in a less cold climate, perhaps.
Okay, so our commenter is saying that the AP took it out of its style guide in 2012.
In 2012. Well, a lot of folks are
Interesting.
still using it. So
Yeah.
And they didn't give a alternative for that because this is the first I'm hearing of this.
Yeah. I don't know, and we'll see. No consensus on alternative.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions, concerns, or thoughts? Anti-gay? Okay. I'd like that. See, I learned about activated and anti-gay today. So here's the other thing that I learned. Learning happens in collaboration, right? Happens in community,
yes.
Which is why it's important to be in community. So we just learned something today.
Yes.
I am down for learning something every day. Anti-gay. All right. I'm going to reach out. We have a trans wellness community here that does a lot of education. I'm going to reach out to them and ask what terminology that they're using. They do like a queer trans education for folks working in public service. And I've been to a couple of their presentations, and I think they're actually still using that. So I'm going to ask them what's going on to get some new terminology, but anti-gay works. Fantastic. Anything else people want to share?
I don't see any coming in just yet. Oh.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Was that Lisa? I think Lisa.
Yeah.
If anti-gay actually encompasses trans identities, non-binary folk, right? When we look at LGBTQA+, we're looking at intersex, asexual, like there's a lot that encompasses that. So I'm not sure that would encompass non-binary folks. See how language is changing? This is really important for us to learn. I'm still trying to figure all of this out as well. And as of this moment in time in, February, 9th, 2022, almost at 3 p.m., we are all still learning. So thank you. Maybe when we meet up, if you're going to be meeting up next week, if you find out anything, we can start with that conversation, what we've learned. But this is how we learn. That's why we have these seminars, because learning is ongoing. Much like yoga, learning is a practice that we never want to give up. We never want to be stuck in our own understanding of things, so much so that we are not open to hearing another perspective. So I'm grateful for the education. Bring it on. Yay.
Yep.
Yay. I love to learn. I will be a lifelong student. And that's what's asked of us as people who practice yoga, right? That we are lifelong learners for sure. All right. Is everybody interested in participating in some movement? Because we've been sitting for an hour. I think it might be nice to get on our mats. So I'm going to pause, and I have my setup behind me, and I'm going to give everybody 5 minutes to take a bio break, and then we'll jump on the mat for about a 25-minute practice, which will include a relaxation. We're going to take a little bit of movement. If you want to move in a chair, that's fine. If you want to move by a wall, if you want to do any of this laying down, I will give you lots of opportunity. Come to our mats. I like to lay down. So if you're in a chair, just get comfortable in the And if you're able to sit on your mat, sit on your mat or lay down, or come to whatever is comfortable for you. I just want to make sure I'm connected here. About 6 updates ago. It's amazing to me how quickly technology just gets outdated. So while you're laying on your mat, let's come to our breath. So one of my favorite meditation teachers always says that what is happening in the present moment is the breath. And that's Sharon Salzberg. She's got some great work that I think everyone can benefit from.
And just find this comfortable place wherever you are. I'm going to float my arms out into T. I'm going to keep my knees bent because I'm sometimes laying on a hard floor on a flat surface doesn't feel that comfortable. So if you're joining me on the mat, you can gently rock your knees side to side and allowing your knees to fall side to side. Just very gently, breathing deeply and slowly, just allowing your breath to move. We've taken in a lot of context, right, in this past little bit. So we just want to make sure we let our body kind of absorb not only the philosophy, but the movement part of the practice. And now let's bring the soles of the feet together, knees wide. Let's reach the arms up overhead. Just kind of notice what's going on. This is a pretty deep hip opener. You might feel a lot of sensation, you know, at your groin. And if you do, then bring your feet back to flat on the floor. This might not be a pose that is available in this moment to you, and that's okay. Because remember what I said before. It's not an all or nothing practice. It's an all or something practice. And let's bring our feet flat to the floor. And let's draw our right knee into our chest. And you can do this seated by just lifting your leg up and bringing it into the chest from a seated position on a chair. I'm placing my fingertips behind my thigh. If that doesn't work, hands can come to the floor. If you want to reach the front of the knee, if your knee is okay and amenable to that, you certainly can do that as well. So throughout this practice, I'm going to be giving you lots of opportunities to explore your body. And now let's cross that right ankle over the left knee. And now let's come to the breath. Let's take a deep inhalation and a deep exhalation. In through the nose, out through the mouth to start. And just kind of notice sensation in your hips. And take a deep exhalation in through the nose, out through the mouth. And now when you are ready, you can close the lips and let the breath come out through the nose only, or you can do the entire practice with the breath that feels most natural for you. So it doesn't have to be, again, all or nothing. It can be all or something. Taking your right hand, placing it at your right thigh, you can gently press the thigh away from you as a little bit of a hip opener. Or if it feels better, you can draw that left knee into the chest, holding on at the top leg or grasping at the bottom of the thigh. If you're seated, you're going to cross your right ankle over your left knee from your seated position and gently fold forward. So you have the option to just get into the hips where we store a lot of our, or we may store, I shouldn't say we all store it. We store it in different parts of our body. And releasing that left leg to the floor, you can hold that right leg in, or if you want to take a half-happy baby, you can hold on at the ankle, the back of the thigh, or the outer edge of the foot as you open that right leg to the right, pressing your knee towards the floor, pressing the inner edge of your foot up to the sky. Just taking a tiny bit of opening and movement here. And as you exhale, let's release that right foot to the floor. And we can draw the left knee into the chest, holding on at the back of the thigh or the front of the knee if you like. You're just kind of noticing what's going on. If you want to point and flex the toe, you certainly can do that. If you're interested in a little bit more sensation, you certainly can take the toe up to the sky or place the footprint on the ceiling or in the sky. If you're sitting in a chair, holding the knee into the chest is good, or lifting the knee from the floor is good. And now crossing, when you're ready, that left ankle over the right knee. You can take your left hand, gently press that right thigh. So I bring the heel of my hand right into the crease of my hip, and I just gently press it away. Just where it feels good for me, where I feel first sensation. If you want more sensation, maybe you draw that right knee into the chest and it becomes a little bit deeper of a hip opener. And again, it's really much yours to discover. It's your adventure to have. And now when you are ready, planting that right foot onto the floor, taking your half-happy baby, whether that's the hand under the knee, grabbing on at the ankle or the outer edge of the foot, which is the inner edge of the foot, pressing up toward the ceiling, gently pulling the knee down toward the outer edge of your rib cage. Noticing what's happening here. Noticing what you're feeling, noticing your breath, and just being okay with wherever you're at. This isn't, again, all or nothing, it's all or something. And now releasing that foot to the floor. Let's plant both feet onto the floor, walking the heels closer to the bottom. Let's inhale and lift the hips up to the sky, pressing the knees away. And on the exhale, let's lower down slowly. Now, if you're seated in a chair, you can take your hands to your knees and do a little bit of cat-cow by rocking the chest forward and rounding out. If you're here on the floor, we're going to press down through the feet, lift the hips to the sky, and now exhale and lowering down. We'll do 2 more, either cat-cow seated or lifting and lowering onto your back. Last one, inhale, lift, press the knees away from you. Exhale and lower. And now floating the arms out into T with the palms turned up. If you're seated, I'll give you the instructions shortly. So continuing cat-cow if you're seated. If you're laying on your back, knees can come into the chest one at a time, and then take your knees over to the right side with your gaze looking up toward the ceiling. Now, if you're seated in a chair, bring your left hand to your knee and right hand behind you on the back of the chair and take your twist. Inhale back through center slowly. And on the exhale, bring the knees over to the left side. Gaze up toward the ceiling or over toward that right thumb. And again, if you're in a chair, your right hand will come to your left knee and your left fingertips will come behind you. Now we're going to add on here. Inhaling back through center, let's roll all the way over to that right side. If you're seated, you're going to take that right side twist. But this time I want you to bring the palms together. This time, inhale, circle the arm. This is the top arm, the left arm, up and over into almost like a sundial feeling. Then inhale, back through center with the knees. Exhale, you're going to bring that right hand to meet the left. Arms are long. And then you're going to circle that left arm or right arm up and over as you open to the right. We're going side to side here. Now, if you're seated in your chair and doing this, you're simply going to alternate bringing the arm across the body this way and then open arms across the body this way. If you're laying on the floor, you're doing that sundial where you circle the top arm up, you're opening the shoulders, bringing the knees back through center, and then sliding the opposite arm over. We're taking a few moments here to open up, reach, knees back through center, exhale, bring the legs, the hands together, inhale, circle up and around, knees back through center, and now exhale. Let's do one more time and circle around. So this is a nice way to get into your shoulders, which might be holding tension, and coming back through center when you're ready, hugging the knees into the chest or hugging one knee at a time if you're seated into the chest. And then let's go over to our favorite side and press yourselves up to a hands and knees position. If you're seated, you're going to place your hands on your knees. We're going to move through cat-cow here. So taking your hands out nice and wide, fingertips nice and wide. If you have sensitive wrists that have healing, perhaps you may have arthritis in your hands. If you happen to have blocks or paper towel rolls, you can wrap your fingertips around the blocks so that it changes the angle of the wrist here. Or you can try coming up onto your finger pads, then coming down onto your knuckles with the palms lifted, and then pressing the hands all the way down to the mat and engaging the fingers. If that doesn't work, try coming up onto the fist and pressing down through the tops of the fingers instead. So choose a hand placement that's going to work for you, and then we're going to rock back and forth here. Bringing the chest forward, taking the gaze up, and then on the exhale, rocking back. Pad your knees if you need to, meaning you can fold your mat and place the folded mat underneath your knees for a little extra comfort, or if you're wearing a sweater, if you have a blanket or socks or anything at all that will make patting your knees feel good, I want you to explore it. So all I'm doing is rocking back and forth, heels to the bottom, chest forward, throwing the shoulder blades onto the back, lifting up. And then as you exhale, pressing your bottom back towards your heel. And now this time, we're going to walk our hands back toward our knees, curling our toes under, lifting our hips up and back. Let's walk our fingertips back, softening our knees. Inhale, reach the arms high to the sky as you push down through the feet and lift your arms all the way up nice and slow. And on the exhale, hands through heart center. And let's walk forward toward the top of our mat. So we're going to do a little exercise I call standing in our power as part of finding our own personal power and reestablishing our connection with our body. So this is something I learned from Dr. Amy Cuddy, professor at Harvard University. You want to bring your hands to about 2/5 width apart, okay? Lift your toes, spread them out all the way. Now I want you to push down into your feet and stretch your mat wide with your feet. Curl the shoulder blades onto the back, turn the palms forward. In yoga, we call this Tadasana or mountain pose. And I want you to notice the energy that you pull up from the bottom of your feet all the way into your body. So don't be afraid to root down through your feet to pull your belly in towards your body to protect your back and curl the shoulder blades onto the back. Now press down through the feet. Inhale, sweep the arms high to the sky. And now bend the knees, fold forward, hinging at the hips. Let's reach the arms straight back behind us, opening the shoulders. And on the inhale, bend into the knees, reach the arms forward, and now reach all the way up to the sky. Palms together, and now we're going to lean to the right side, back through center, lean to the left side, back through center, reach up, stretch up, look up, and now bend at the knees again, reach back behind you, look down toward the floor, and on the inhale, press into the feet, reach the arms all the way up to the sky, palms together, lean to the right side, back through center, lean to the left side, back through center. Inhale, reach up, and now sweep the arms wide, either bringing the hands to the hips or lacing the fingertips behind you. And you can squeeze the shoulder blades together, let your thumbs rest on your sacrum, bend your knees, and hug the elbows toward each other, or let the arms fall away if that's available to you, or keep your hands on your waist if that feels better. And on the inhale, let's sit slowly back into a chair like you're sitting on a bar stool, lift your chest, and then reach your arms all the way up. And I'm going to invite you to swing the arms all the way around, bringing your hands to your waist. We're going to take a deep, big step back with our right foot. Pivot and plant our right foot. Let's bend into our left knee. And on the inhale, let's circle our arms out into T. Now, if you're on the chair, you can turn your body toward the side, step your right leg off, or your left leg off the front of the chair, and your right leg to the back of the chair. Float your arms out into T. This is a warrior pose. Turning your palms up to the sky, let's stretch our arms all the way up. And now let's turn our toes. Left toes to the top of the mat, right toes to the back of the mat. Float the arms back out into T for a warrior. And now let's sweep the arms up one more time. Turn the toes to the long edge of the mat, so both sets of toes are pointing forward. Go ahead and stretch the arms up as far as you can. And on the exhale, bend the knees. Bring your hands to your sides, hinging at the hips. Fold forward. Fingertips can come to the block or toward the floor. You can do a nice little half lift, looking forward, pressing back through the heels. Exhale, bend the knees a lot. Bring the hands on the waist. Curl your shoulder blades onto your back, lift up. And now, let's heel toe our feet together into the center of our mat and shake it out here a little bit. Facing forward in the center of our mat, rooting down through the right foot, let's bring our left heel to the inside of the right ankle and bring our hands together either in prayer pose. Hands can come to the waist, or if you're feeling ambitious, reaching your arms to the sky, turning your palms into a version of tree. Now, if this works for you, stay here. If you want to take your leg up a little bit higher, or to the inside of your thigh, go ahead and play with that. But take a moment to breathe here. Wherever you are with your balance, if you can find a space to anchor your gaze in the room, this is called your drishti or your focal point. And know that balance has more to do with concentration and less to do with physical ability. So if we can concentrate on a singular point and get strong in our bodies, it can help us to balance, and that's true for our bodies and for our brains. Go ahead and release the hands down. And let's come to the second side. Root down through the left foot. Bring your right heel to the inside. So your toes are as a kickstand. You can come close to a wall if you like. If you're good here, stay here. So if your balance is challenged here, this is as far as you need to go. If you're looking for more of a challenge, you can slide your foot to the inside of the thigh or to the inside of your shin, but please avoid bringing your foot to the inside of the knee. We want to really be mindful and protective of our knee joint. When you're ready, you can inhale, put your arms up to the sky if you like. You can keep your hands at your waist. You can do whatever you want with your hands here, opening the chest. Beautiful. And then on the exhale, let's go ahead and release our hands back to our waist. Let's step our feet together. Let's shake everything out, and let's return to the top of our mat in our Tadasana pose. Feet about 2/5 width apart. Lift all the toes, spread them out, press them down. Turn your palms forward, relax your shoulder blades onto your back. Coming into the Tadasana or mountain pose, feeling the strength of the legs. Now let's inhale and sweep the arms high to the sky. We're going to make our way back to the floor. And let's exhale, bend generously at the knees, hinging at the hips. Let's fold forward and reach the arms back behind us. Good. Forward, crown of the head coming toward the floor. Now take your feet out wider and make space for your belly. So if you have abundance like me in the center of your belly, you can take your feet out wider and create a little bit more space for yourself. And then on the exhalation, let's bring our hands either to blocks or to the floor. And we're going to take a giant step back with our right foot. So I'm up on my fingertips here. And then when I lower my right knee down, so you can tap your right knee down, then I can plant my hands. Now I'm going to slide my left knee back to meet my right. And now I'm going to take my left leg out behind me, right arm out in front of me. If that's too much, take your right hand to the mat instead. And release. Let's do that second side. Left leg back, right arm forward, or right leg back, left arm forward, whatever you did first. And release. And now let's make our way to seated slowly. Bringing the soles of the feet together, the knees wide, and lengthening forward. Gently taking the chin to the chest and pressing the knees wide. And again, if you're on a chair, you can bring the soles of your feet together on the chair and just do the best you can with what you've got. Breathe deeply and slowly. Inhaling and exhaling. And now let's inhale, lift the head and the heart come up. Exhale, let's bring our legs together and let's stretch our feet out in front of us. You can keep a nice micro bend in the knees. You can move the flesh of the inner thighs in and back. So I just rotate my inner thighs out. You can pull the flesh of your bottom back if you like. Fingertips alongside your hips. Curl the shoulder blades onto your back and lift your gaze. Stay here, or if it's available to you, walk your hands alongside your legs and gently fold forward until you feel first sensation. If you can grab your toes, go ahead if that's in your wheelhouse. If that doesn't work for you, hands by your sides work, hands on your shins or your knees work. Whatever floats your boat here, whatever makes this available to you, I want you to embrace that. And then when you are ready, let's remove our hands if they're binding, bend our knees slowly, and make our way onto our back. So you have the option to roll to your side to come onto your back, or roll straight back behind you. Now bending the knees, bringing the knees together, arms out wide. You can take this as a version of your final pose, which is corpse pose, Shavasana, otherwise known as corpse pose. Find a comfortable position to lay down. If you want to extend your legs out because that feels good, by all means, you can go ahead and do that. If you want to lay on your side with a blanket or your sweater between your knees, you can choose that as well. I decided I'm going to come for a meditation. So I'm going to sit up on my blocks. You can sit up on a pillow. You can come to a chair. And I'm going to take my final rest in meditation. You decide what works best in your body. Take your time and find your breath. Inhaling and exhaling and just finding your way. And gently making those exhalations a little bit longer than your inhalation. Now taking some gentle movement to your fingers and your toes. Rolling your wrists and your ankles. And then very gently and very mindfully stretching in a way that feels good in your body. So that's going to be different for everybody. So I want you to find what works for you. It doesn't matter what it looks like, and it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. I just want you to do you. And then when you are ready, you can roll to your favorite side and make your way to a seated posture, finding your breath and finding your way. And what I like to do is put my hands over my heart as a gesture of gratitude to my body for showing up in whatever capacity that my body was able to show up for me today. My gratitude to this practice and all the teachers who have trained me and who have come before me, and to its origins and its people in India and other parts of the world. And my gratitude to you for allowing me the opportunity to share what I know, to share what I love, to share this experience with you. I am grateful for this opportunity to be in community with you. May you be happy. May you stay safe and remain healthy. But most of all, may you just be. Peace and blessings, everyone, to you. And thank you for joining me for this practice.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel, or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.